things. This is our announcement section. This is like the pre-sermon sermon, but hang on because it's long. Long announcement, short sermon is what you're hoping. I hear you. So a bit of a long announcement and an update, but I feel like in order to make the whole thing make sense in terms of what I'm announcing, I've got to put some puzzle pieces together and try my best to paint the whole picture of what's going on for everybody. And so, like I said, today's Pentecost. It's a day that God did some unexpected things in the church. So last Monday, I started praying, God, will you do unexpected things at the Village this week? Will you do unexpected things we didn't plan at the Village this week? And on Tuesday, God started to answer that prayer, although not in a way that I expected, which I guess makes sense since I was praying for unexpected things. It wouldn't have made sense if God had answered my unexpected prayer with something expected, and so that's kind of where we are, but it's specifically around our water project, and I want to put some pieces together. Basically, there's some really exciting news, there's some unexpected news, there's some good news, and then I think that all of it is maybe some God news, and I want to fill you in on all of it, but it's going to take me a few minutes to do that, and we're going to have some moving parts, so do your best. I didn't bring charts because this happened unexpectedly, right? So I had no time to make the charts. Let me start here with the amazing news. In order to do that, I've got to go back about 2 years. About 2 years ago, a missionary in Tanzania by the name of Eric Sword. Eric and his wife Liz have been missionaries in Tanzania for about 9 years. They got in contact with me and with some of us on the staff and asked if we might consider praying about a partnership with them in the city of Mwanza, which is in the northern part of Tanzania on the shore of Lake Victoria. So for 2 years, we've been in conversation and communication with Eric and with Liz about partnering with them. In fact, we thought about taking a team there this spring, but the details didn't work out for that. But we have been praying together and just kind of listening and that kind of thing. So going back a few months ago, we had our conversation with Water 4 about the project that we wanted to be part of for our Easter offering. We had a call with Water 4 on one day where they talked to us about this community where they hoped that we could serve. When we asked on the call, where is that in relation to the rest of Tanzania, they said, oh, it's very close to Mwanza. And we said, of course it is, because that's where we've been having conversations with the missionaries there and praying about a partnership. Of course it's close to Mwanza. So we heard that from Water 4 on one day. The very next morning, after we said, I think we're going to pursue this, we're going to take this to our leadership team and see what they think about the water project. The very next morning, I got an email from Eric that said, this August, we're bringing in 10 church planters into Mwanza, and we want to do a training with the church planters to help them learn how to be church planting churches and disciples who make disciples who make disciples. Would you all be interested in partnering with us, and would you be interested in coming over to help lead the training in August, and maybe you could bring a team? And I thought that's really interesting that the day after we've said maybe yes to a water project near Mwanza, we got an email saying, hey, would you be part of this church planting thing in Mwanza in August? And by the way, you could probably go visit your water project. Just real coincidental, I'm sure, right? So we took that to our leadership team. We took the Water 4 project. We took the church planting opportunity to our leadership team. And we said, basically, they're asking us to help plant 10 churches that plant churches in Tanzania. If you've been around since the beginning of the Village, you know that we've said we want to be a church that plants churches, and we want to be disciples who make disciples who make disciples. And on both of the things, you have bold leadership at this church. It's not staff. You have some really bold and faithful leaders, and they said, that's who we are. Let's do it. So the exciting news that I'm announcing to you this morning is, as the Village, we are expecting. Yeah. In case you didn't catch that, we have said yes to being part of planting 10 churches in Tanzania that in turn plant churches that plant churches that plant churches, and partnering with the Methodist Church in Tanzania. That's exciting news, right? We've said from the beginning, like one of the things we've talked about is, wouldn't it be cool if we helped plant a church before we build a building? We didn't realize it would be 10 churches and it would be in Tanzania. That wasn't part of the plan, but that apparently is where God is leading us. So that's really, really exciting. That is the amazing news. Keep that in the back of your head. Go God, that's right. Absolutely right. Here's the unexpected news that we got this week on Tuesday. As often happens, and I've written some notes because I want to make sure I get my details right, but as often happens in international missions, politics have become a major factor in our water project, and they are changing the nature of what we're being asked to do in Tanzania. And so I'll shorten this version as much as I can, but the gist is that Water 4, who we'd been working with, had been working with a local official on the ground in Tanzania, in Lamadai, to work on a piped water project there. They have an engineer, Water 4 has an engineer in Tanzania. His name is Andrew Belko. You'll need to remember that because it's going to come back into play at the end of the story, right? So Andrew Belko is the engineer on the ground. He's the point person for Water 4 in Tanzania. He's been working with the local official there. They've been designing the project, and from what they could tell, everything was a go for that project. So they'd work with this local official. This local official is an amazing man of faith. He's done many water projects around the area, and everything was good to go. Once Water 4 received our money, which, by the way, at this point totals over $70,000, which is unheard of for a 2-year-old church plant, but once they received our money, their process is a normal process for an organization like this, they began to pull the permits to get the permission from the national government to do the water project in Lamadai. And once they began to pull the projects, they learned 2 things. Number one, they learned that the vice president of Tanzania has a pet project for a piped water system that will eventually include Lamadai, although the timeline is a little iffy on that. Number 2, the local person, the local official that they've been working with on the ground, the person who has the experience in water projects where it seemed like everything was a go, they've come to find out that that local official is in the opposition party to the national government, and he is viewed as a threat to the national government or by the national government because he is doing water projects, essentially, and he is getting some credit around that community for doing those kinds of products or those kinds of projects. And so Water 4 came to us. As soon as they heard this, they came to us and they said they had a few options in this case. Number one, they could continue on with the project as planned in Lamadai, but they knew that if they did that, that would put their local partner in danger, life-threatening danger, and it would also put all of the water projects that they have going on in Tanzania in jeopardy. That was option number one. Option number 2 was that they could bribe the government in order to move the project forward. And those of you who've been involved in international mission or international adoption, you know that that's sometimes standard practice in order to get the government on your side when you want to do a project. But Water 4 does not feel good about that kind of scenario. Number 3, they felt like they could abandon the project in Lamadai knowing that there would be water coming there eventually, but work to use our funds to alleviate the water crisis in close proximity to the original project. And so in this case, they feel like their safest and wisest choice is choice number 3. I want to say about them, as soon as they knew what was going on, they got in contact with us. They have been nothing but above board with us. I think they are an organization of great integrity, and I will say in working with some other organizations in the past who have used money in a different way when projects have changed and they have just used the money as they wished and then told us about it later, or told me about it later. I've been involved in projects like that in the past. Water 4 came to us as soon as they knew and wanted to talk through the entire situation. And so I've been nothing but impressed with them. So they've been tracking along with us this entire time. They have been excited with us, and they were disappointed to the core with us when they heard this news the other day. Now, here's the good news. So we've got awesome news, we've got unexpected news, we've got good news, and then we'll get to the God news in just a minute. The good news is Water 4 has a plan. So again, we've surpassed $70,000 in our fundraising, and they are now proposing that we attack the water crisis in a collection of villages called the Buchela District, which is even closer. It's about an hour closer to Mwanza. Of course it is, right? And so it's closer to Mwanza, and it would put us much closer in proximity to Eric and Liz Sword, those missionaries that we've been working with. Here's what they told us about that district. The Buchela District is it's got a collection of villages that are not close enough to each other to put in a piped water project like we were planning to do in Lamadai. But what we would be able to do with this money is construct 15 to 18 wells in independent villages throughout that district. Each village has above 200 people. What they told us about that is this is actually a more rural community, and the people in this district are probably more in need than the people in Lamadai. He said that at 4 o'clock every morning in these villages, girls get up, and he said it is always girls in this culture. At 4 o'clock in the morning every day, girls get up, and they walk for hours and hours, miles and miles, to collect water for their families, and often the water is dirty and contaminated, and they're bringing back contaminated water to their homes. And they spend almost their entire day doing that, which means none of them go to school. And so if we were able to attack that problem in that district, not only would we bring water closer in proximity to their homes, we would also allow many of those girls to go to school for the first time. And so the bottom line of the good news is that we would still be able to use the money that we've collected, the money that we've raised, to attack the water crisis in this part of Tanzania. Here's the God news, and I'll close with this, and then I have a sermon after this. Don't look at your watch. Don't worry about it. It's Pentecost. Thank you. I know I can always count on you. So, again, Monday, I prayed that God would do something unexpected. Tuesday, we got this call from Water 4 saying there's some unexpected things happening. Tuesday night, I went to bed disappointed. And I went to bed praying, God, I hope that you can do something good with this because I'm feeling really disappointed right now. Wednesday morning when I woke up, first thing, I had an email from Eric Sword, the missionary in Mwanza. Here's what it said. I thought you would enjoy the small world. I had Andrew Belko over to dinner last night to talk about a possible partnership in some projects that we are looking at near Mwanza. In conversation, I found out that his company is the one that's been working with you and Water 4. I just wanted to let you know that we had this serendipitous moment to make a connection like this. So just to make it clear as it is in my brain anyway, Eric, the missionary in Tanzania, has been having conversations with Andrew, the well digger in Tanzania, about partnerships to dig wells and to train people in some clean water usage in projects near Mwanza. Andrew is Water 4's main contact person on the ground in all of Tanzania. And Eric is the person that we'd had a connection with to do work around Mwanza. And now the two of them, independently of us, not knowing that each of them knew us, are having dinner to talk about partnering in projects near Mwanza. Yeah. So I'm just making sure I've got my head wrapped around this. Of all the places in the world, and if all the organizations around the world that dig freshwater wells, we happened to simultaneously decide to partner with a couple missionaries near Mwanza in Tanzania, who then just so happened to have dinner with a person on the ground for Water 4, the organization that we just so happened to select to work with for water projects. Yeah. So I said when we first got this news on Tuesday, I said I'm really disappointed in this, but I'm confident that God is going to do something beyond our imagination in this scenario. And this feels to me like God might be doing something that we didn't plan or didn't expect, but it might end up being even better than what we planned or expected. And so we have two projects as a church, and our leadership team has met to talk about this. We could abandon the project altogether because it's not exactly what we gave the money toward, or we could work with Water 4 to shift where we use our money and invest in this Buchela district, which is close to Mwanza. Our leadership team, after talking with Water 4, their feeling is that what we need to do is shift our focus and still use these funds to attack the water crisis in Tanzania. And so I'll stop with that because I still got some other things to say in just a minute. But I want you to know if you have questions or comments or concerns about any of this, I am wide open. I'd love to talk to you if you want to know more about it. If you want to know more about traveling with us in August on this exploratory team to Tanzania, I'd love to talk to you about that as well. Allison, go.